This video is sponsored by our wonderful NerdSync patrons who support the show over at patreon.com/NerdSync. In 1917, An Airman's Outings by Contact was the first known publication of the term superhero. A little over 2 decades later, we had the debut of who many consider to be the first superhero, Superman. He set the tone of what a superhero should be. He had a colorful, eye-catching costume, a secret identity with his Clark Kent alter ego, and, most importantly, incredible, awe-inspiring superpowers. But then, as Batman movie producer Michael Uslan points out, a few short months later saw the debut appearance of the Dark Knight. Still had the costume, still had the secret identity, but no superpowers. Bruce Wayne wasn't bitten by a radioactive bat or sent to Earth from a dying planet of bat people. He was simply a man. And with his premiere issue, Batman almost immediately challenged what it meant to be a superhero. Which is why we're gonna start off our month of Batman videos by answering the age-old question, what is a superhero? And is Batman one? We're doing a whole month of videos about the Caped Crusader for October, Battober, if you will, the long Halloween. Batman is one of my favorite superheroes to make videos about, but before we go any further this month, I think we should figure out if Batman is even a superhero. You might be tempted to jump into a dictionary and see if Batman lines up with all the criteria laid out there, but I mean, that's problematic, right? I mean, who gets to decide what a dictionary says? And why? We'll talk more about that in a bit, but for now we're going to be pulling heavily from this little wonderful book right here, aptly titled What is a Superhero?, which features a series of essays by comic scholars and creators. I even sat down with one of the editors of the book, clinical psychologist Dr. Robin Rosenberg, to ask her directly, what exactly is a superhero?
So to me, a superhero has 2 components, the super and the hero. So for the super, it's that they either are born with some superpowers, discover they have them, or they develop them. And then the hero part is about doing good consistently. So one heroic act by someone with superpowers does not make a superhero. It's that this becomes part of their mission, and it's, if you would want to call it, there's their day job in a sense. I mean, This is kind of what they do. They may do other things to make money, but this is their mission.
This definition lines up with many comics creators. Stan Lee defines a superhero in a very similar way as, quote, a person who does heroic deeds and has the ability to do them in a way that a normal person couldn't, end quote. Jeff Loeb says superheroes are people with powers and abilities beyond those of mortal men, who make a choice to use them to help those who need it. Joe Quesada described a superhero as an extraordinary person placed under extraordinary circumstances who manages to do extraordinary things to ultimately triumph over evil. These are vague enough that Batman could easily fit into that mold. No normal person could do what Batman does in the way that Batman does them. The book's other editor, Pete Coogan, explains that a superpower is simply any ability or quality that raises a person's performance above that of ordinary people. Quote, often these are thought of as supernatural abilities that defy the laws of physics in some way, which is why people often claim that Batman does not have superpowers. But superpowers can be anything from extraordinary or mystical abilities, advanced technology, or even highly developed physical or mental skills. Sure, Bruce Wayne might not have heat beam eyes or the ability to tap into the Speed Force, but his suit, gadgets, and vehicles paired with his mental and physical training beyond what ordinary people are capable of are Batman's superpowers.
The fact that Batman could not actually exist in our world. I mean, his wealth could definitely exist, but
sure.
His detecting and crime fighting skills are clearly more than normal. His ability to kind of take a punch and keep on ticking is not within the realm of the average human. You know, the fact that Batman can appear as a crime fighter to Superman says this is not a mere normal mortal. I know he's supposed to be, but he's not. If it's not plausible in our world, then they're de facto a superhero. And Batman, again, is a really great example of how this is absolutely true.
Cool. Problem solved. Batman is super and therefore a superhero. Guess we can wrap up this video early. But, okay, I understand if you think that's just a cop-out. So, for the sake of argument, let's go through the rest of this video under the assumption that Batman's superness doesn't actually count as superpowers. He's just a normal guy who fights crime dressed as a bat. Is that a superhero? Well, we have a bit of a problem. Let's take a look at Dr. Rosenberg's definition from before. A superhero is a person with superpowers and a pro-social mission. Now, even if we think that Batman doesn't fit that definition, many other non-superheroes probably could. What about Luke Skywalker or Harry Potter? They both fight evil while doing things no ordinary human or muggle could. Are they superheroes? They don't really feel like it, do they? Think about it this way. Marvel's Doctor Strange movie comes out around the same time as Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, another installment in the Harry Potter movie franchise. Both deal with magic and mystical arts, yet come November, if your friend were to say, hey, let's go see that new superhero movie, you would instinctively think of Doctor Strange over Fantastic Beasts, right? Comics writer Kurt Busiek elaborated on this, explaining that if you were to take Doctor Strange out of the Marvel Universe, he's no longer a superhero, he's simply a wizard or magician. If you take Hulk out of the Marvel Universe, he's just a monster. However, if you put Hulk and Doctor Strange in a superhero context where they can join a team of other superheroes like the Avengers or Defenders, then of course they're superheroes because they're members of a superhero team. Regarding Batman, Busiek compares the Caped Crusader to Robin Hood, saying, quote, Robin Hood lives in an otherwise realistic world, and aside from being extremely skilled with a bow, isn't superhuman, and there's no other superhumans in this world. With Batman, it's easier to say he's a superhero because there are superhumans around. There's an understanding that in that milieu, characters who do what Batman does are superheroes. End quote.
Anyone in a Marvel or DC world who has, again, just some of the elements is de facto a superhero. Black Widow, who in some incarnations has no superpowers.
Yeah, that's true.
And doesn't often even wear a costume. I mean, she's sort of a, really kind of powerful human. She lives in a superhero world and she's treated by superheroes as a superhero. So we assume she's a superhero.
Which makes me wonder, if Batman didn't exist in a world of other superheroes and supervillains, would he be a superhero? Like Gotham by Gaslight, where Batman feels more like a theatrical detective. Or take The Dark Knight. As far as we know, Batman is the only superhero in that world, and because of that, he feels like less of a superhero and more of just like a guy. Maybe that's just me. Let's back on track. To separate superheroes from heroes of other genres like John McClane or the aforementioned Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker, we tend to ascribe one additional criteria to superheroes. They've got their powers, they've got their mission, but Coogan says there's still one thing missing: their identity. Things like costumes, secret identities, and code names, which work in tandem with the superhero's mission and powers to convey some sense of who they are and what they can do. But beyond that, the costume itself can serve as context for a character to be considered a superhero by placing them within the superhero community. Even having something as simple as a chevron or symbol emblazoned typically upon one's chest is something fairly unique to superheroes. When Batman dons any one of his costumes, be it spandex, body armor, or a mech suit, there's always a bat symbol, and sometimes bat nipples. This chevron helps to instantly announce that Batman is a superhero. But obviously there are heroes who don't wear costumes or have code names, even if they did at one point in their career. Luke Cage, for example, has a whole show where he simply walks around in different bullet-ridden hoodies for the entire season. Not exactly a costume as we would typically think of it. And again, maybe you're still not convinced that Batman has any superpowers, so he's not a superhero. And that's fine. We don't need every superhero to fit every single criterion. There will always be examples of superheroes that don't meet all of the qualifications and still count as superheroes. Conversely, you can have characters like Jedis or witches and wizards who might actually meet the qualifications but don't really feel like superheroes. Moreover, as this book demonstrates, the checklist of what makes up a superhero can vary wildly from scholar to scholar, creator to creator, and even reader to reader. We may never reach a definition that pleases everybody. The good news is that we don't need one, because we all intuitively understand what a superhero is anyway, even if we can't articulate it. According to comics writer and editor Danny Fingeroth, quote, "In the world of commercial superhero creation, the feel of a character has as much to do with whether he or she is considered a superhero as any actual powers," he said, presumably comforting a crying Bruce Wayne. It sure feels like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Deadpool, and Luke Cage are all superheroes, but Why? They don't all share the same exact traits with one another, so how can each one fall under the umbrella of superhero?
I think at the moment you can have superhero characters who don't have one or two elements, but they have others, so it's not a requirement to have all of the elements. Mentally, we implicitly put them in the superhero category.
This sentiment echoes philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein's concept of family resemblance, in that words don't have rigid dictionary definition, where there's one element that everything in the group shares. Instead, each member of the group has at least some shared overlapping characteristics with other members. Superman and Spider-Man are paradigm examples of a superhero, characters that everyone would agree fit the bill. They have costumes, superpowers, a selfless and pro-social mission, secret identities, exist in a superhero context, etc. But then you have fringe cases like Batman, who you might still argue has no powers, or Deadpool, who doesn't always operate under a selfless mission statement, or Luke Cage, who doesn't typically wear a costume if you think that's an important factor. But even still, these characters share at least some qualities with those paradigm heroes, which allows them to fall under the term superhero. Wittgenstein explained that this is simply how language works. It's fluid, and the meaning of the word superhero or comic or bat could change depending on its use in culture. As we discussed at the top of this video, the word superhero didn't even exist before the 19th century, and now it's everywhere. In short, meaning is use. The way our brains figure out what words mean is by hearing how others in our community use them. Which is why I want to turn to you, the NerdSync community. What is a superhero? And does Batman count? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Robin Rosenberg for helping with this video. I highly recommend checking out this book, What is a Superhero, for more in-depth essays and analyses by comics writers and scholars. Every single chapter, I promise you, is fascinating and might actually challenge your thinking of the superhero genre. I'll have a link down in the description down below. I also have a full 30-minute conversation with Dr. Rosenberg that I will upload for you wonderful patrons who support this show. So if that's something that you're interested, head on over to patreon.com/nerdsync and find out more. And if you're in the mood for more videos, click on the left to see this episode we did trying to define comics as a medium. It's kind of similar to this one. It's not as easy as you think. Or you can click to the right to watch an entire playlist of Batman videos as we celebrate Battober, the long Halloween. Until next time, my name is Scott, reminding you to read between the panels and grow smarter through comics. See ya.